Indoctrination is happening in our schools throughout the country, and that's why we need to be engaged in what's happening in our schools and our communities. We have a choice. We are going to lose our country or we are going to save our country. But standing still and doing nothing will guarantee its loss. Earlier this week, I showed you what's being taught in Tucson as part of the controversial Mexican American Studies program. I like to call it treason. During Tuesday's school board meeting, a mom stood up to read excerpts from the textbook. Watch what happens.
At page 72 of this book, it says radical page 73, bull and kiss the man's.
I'm going to ask him, I'm sorry, but Dr. Slegman, I'm going to ask that the language be not mentioned during public meetings.
Okay.
We may have young people in this room, it's inappropriate.
You're right.
Thank you, Doctor.
We're talking in English. Teaching it in your class. Wait, please.
Yeah, that's the point. She was reading from a textbook that the school uses to teach kids as young as third grade. And here are these dopes who are on the school board and like, hey, careful, let's not use that language. There are kids here. Yeah, and they're reading the school books every day. When something like this happens in Tucson, we think it's rare. We think it's rare in high school. But it is happening in colleges all across the country. Yesterday, we talked about feeling like a voice in the wilderness. But there is anything that is more fun than being a conservative on a college campus. Can you imagine being more alone? Colleges and universities often tout about having an atmosphere of openness and acceptance. Yeah, right. There's always an asterisk that goes along with that. President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad accepted with open arms at universities. But look what happened when the Israeli ambassador to the United States visited the University of California, Irvine, just last year.
And then later I met the foreign minister of Israel. Those of you who know him. Now that you've made your point, stand up and leave.
He had to be escorted out of the room, so he took a 20-minute break before returning to finish his speech. In total, he was uninterrupted 10 times. It ended in the arrest of 11 students. And this isn't an isolated incident. Views that are considered to be unpopular or conservative have come under attack by liberals on campuses all across the country. Iowa State University, the Conservative Coming Out Week event, is sponsored by the college Republicans. The group got an email response from one of the university professors saying, "F you, Republicans." She went on later to apologize for her language, but defended it by saying the group's announcement was extremely disturbing and offensive. Really? Truman State University in Missouri, a popular leftist who is married to one of the school's professors, destroyed a display advertising a Republican-sponsored event. He tore down the group's signs, ripped them up, and spat on the students representing the group. University of California, Merced, 3 students wanted to explain our country's tax system, so they asked their peers to offer up some of their own hard-earned GPA points to some of the students who weren't scoring as high. Take a look at what happened.
Give a 4.0, we'll take off the excessive GPA, make it like 38 or something, and then redistribute it to someone who's struggling in class, not able to graduate.
It just isn't fair. I work for what I have.
I mean, I understand the money version of it, but the educational version,
I just feel like it's the same thing.
Seeing people who, how's it different? That's GPA. This is an imitation of performance.
They're here in the studio audience. I love you guys. Fantastic job by the students who came up with this question, and they have more of them. But when it comes to giving up something that the students earned, the students aren't so willing to give them up. Sounds like they're greedy students, doesn't it? They probably have privileges of, the lower performing students didn't have, and now they're just greedy. Maybe a mom or a dad bought them a fancy laptop, so why won't they share? University of Redlands in California, students supporting the state's Prop 8 law, which doesn't recognize same-sex marriage, posted a sticker on her dorm room door. There it is, yes on 8. She was told to take it down because it was hate speech. Bucknell University, a group of students handed out fake money that they called Obama stimulus dollars to prove that our dollar is as worthless as monopoly money. And they're right. Not yet, but soon. A school administrator put an end to it by saying the kids never got the school's permission because they hadn't filled out the proper paperwork. Indoctrination isn't new, but how far does it go back? I want you to go to glennbeck.com because I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. You have to see. Here's Horizons of the Future for a Socialist America. Socialism, what's in it for you? I love this one, the Youth Review. This is from the communists in 1953 here in America. And it's all the same stuff. All of the same stuff. Hey, students, you've got to rise up because the man's giving you the shaft. It's the same exact stuff. Look, view the historical documents sent to me that outline the plan to target our children and then compare them. Compare them. You'll never guess which generation got the brunt of this propaganda. They're the ones that are currently jamming it down the throats in our university for our university students. The only way to undo the mess that they have created is E2, education. Educate yourself. Go now to glennbeck.com. Now, on this program, we have talked about courage, and courage is going to become more important. But tonight, you're going to meet some young Americans who have courage. Those stories that I just gave you, all those people, the ones that got spit on and everything else, they're here. College conservatives. It's not easy to stand up and be a voice when you know your opinion is going to be a reason for people to attack you or vilify you. You know, I used to really believe that you could judge a person by their friends. You still can. But more and more these days, you can also judge a person by their enemies. These kids are going to have more and more enemies, but they are standing up. Also, here, right in the center, is Essie Cupp. She is a conservative. She's a columnist. She hosts the self-titled show, Essie Cupp. I don't know what kind of egomaniac that is. I mean, what's up with that? And she also is on glennbeck.com. She does a TV show on glennbeck.com that you can see every day. But she speaks around colleges and universities. And Essie, we've been talking a lot recently about how alone people are on colleges. You've been bringing that to my attention.
Well, because it's the same everywhere I go. I mean, Wellesley, North Carolina State, it doesn't matter what part of the country I'm in, the story is always the same. Conservatives are alone on college campuses, and they're out in the woods. I mean, they have administrators, professors, and other college students completely against them. It's almost like they're the only Americans in some foreign prison, and they're paying to be there. That's the infuriating part. They're paying to get an education that they're just not getting.
You know, it's amazing. I went to college when I was 30. I took one class. I could only afford one class, and it was at Yale. And the professor yelled at me one day. He said to me, "What are you reading, Mr. Beck?" Because I asked him a question, and he didn't like the question. And I think I only told him off because I was 30. I don't really care. And he said to me, "What are you reading?" And I told him, and he said, "Oh, don't read that guy. He'll screw you up. Read this." So the next week I went back to the class, and I asked him the same question. He said, "Are you still reading that guy? Didn't I tell you to read the other guy?" And I said, "Yeah, I read that. I got it. Now answer my question." These guys, these professors, they don't understand that they work for you. How many people here have been in a classroom with a belligerent professor? Oh my gosh. All but 5? All but 5. Anybody want to give me a story? Yes, you.
My teacher actually got up and talked about you, Glenn, and she said that you were a liar, that you knew you were lying, that you were just doing it to make money, and I had your book with me. I had Broke. Yeah. So I'm carrying around Broke, and every classroom I went into, even after that, another professor came and said, "Oh, you know, that guy's crazy. Don't read him. You know, he's just doing it for money." I said, "No, right. he speaks the truth." Yeah. And a bunch of others. Did you ask them, go ahead, could you please take this book and dissect it and show me where? Show me where this guy's wrong. Yeah, that's kind of what I presented to them. I was like, these are the facts.
They didn't do it, did they?
No, they just kept double talk.
The first time we did it, I did an inconvenient book, and the press hammered me for it because they said you didn't have any footnotes. How can we tell where you got all your facts? So when I wrote Broke, we have, I think there's 50 pages, a whole section. No one has ever reviewed the book. I've challenged students to take that book in because they've said the same thing. Their professor says, "Oh, that's ridiculous." Give it to them. I've actually signed books for the professor. Find the errors. We'll correct them. Find them. They can't. Those people are cowards. Anybody who ever shouts you down is a coward. Show us where you're wrong. Defend your position. They don't want to because they can't. You can best them if you just do your own homework. Who else is let me go with Brian, and then who was the one that was spat on? Okay, so we're going to come to you, Vincien. Brian, yeah.
One time in a political class about a year ago, it was brought up, some student brought up how people are silly about President Obama being a communist. And I posed the question, as you've done very well in this program for a couple of years now. I said, well, is it crazy to ask the question? I mean, President Obama has many communist friends and people that call themselves communists. So how am I crazy for asking that question? And he laughed at me. He was sighing, and then the rest of the class laughed at me. And I'm sitting there thinking, boy, this is a college class, and I can't really contribute without getting attacked.
Can you ask that professor, or the professor that does this to you next time? Excuse me, professor, why do you have tenure? Why do you have tenure? What will they say?
They deserve it.
They deserve it. For what reason is tenure?
They have no reason.
What is the reason? Anybody? What? So they can't get fired. Why?
Academic freedom. I don't know.
Academic freedom, which means what?
It means that you have the right to teach what you want to teach, and
it is so someone can stand up and say, "I got news for you, gang. The world is round, not flat." And they won't lose their job. That's what it's for. Now they're telling you the world is flat. They can't get fired for what they say, but you are intimidated. Now, professor, tell me, how does that make sense in your pinheaded little world? How does that make sense? You don't want to be pushed around. You don't want to be threatened, and yet you threaten me. Teach me, professor. Teach me how to think, not what to think. Or are you not up to the challenge? Up to the challenge. My daughter said the other day, she's in college. She actually, nobody knows she's my daughter. She actually was in a class where they said much worse about me. It's bad. I called the school and tried to ask them the question, how much money do I have to give you every quarter to have you not fill my own daughter's head with lies? They didn't have an answer. But my daughter said, she's an A student. She works her brains out. And I was just in Israel, and I said, come with me. She said, Dad, I got a test, it's finals week, I've got to study. And I said, do you know have you studied? I mean, do you got it down? And she said, yeah. She said, but I want an A. And I said, nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to care. You're not going to get out in the real world and somebody's going to say, oh, wait a minute. You had a B? Nobody's going to care. Nobody. So why do you care so much? Why do you care? Why is their approval so important to you? Let me ask you something. Do you really think you're going to spend $100,000 on an education and it really is going to make that much difference in the world that's coming your way? I'm a self-educated man. I ain't no dummy. Bring it on, professor. Bring it on. What are you afraid of when it comes to them? Anybody? What's the worst they can do to you?
Well, I mean, both of us were in a biology class together, and our professor went on a rant about how creation is a ridiculous, theory for how the world began. And
Professor, tell me how the world began.
The Big Bang Theory, of course.
No. You know what that is? That's somebody, there's a burning match. Well, where did the match come from? Who struck the cover? It's called first cause. Don't even call it God. Call it first cause. Professor, tell me what first cause is. The Big Bang. No, sir. That is a reaction to something. Tell me first cause. And who caused it? What caused it?
Right, I completely agree. And the funny thing was, the two of us were talking after class, and I forget which one of us it was, but we posed the question, why didn't either one of us say anything? And the only answer that could come to either one of our heads was, I don't want to get a bad grade, or he has to write me a recommendation letter.
Believe me. Don't be bullied by these people. They're counting on it. They're counting on it. You know, you are examples to people. Have you looked in the picture? I want you to go online, and I want you to look at the picture of the marches with Martin Luther King. I want you to look at them. I have. Over and over and over again, I've looked at them. They were afraid. They were determined, but they were afraid. But they linked arms. And just a few of them at first. And it grew. And they changed the world. Have no fear. What's the worst? They can kill you? Really? Seriously? Oh, well, change the world. Change the world. Back in just a second. We are, tonight we're with the generation that will turn the corner. You will be the generation that either restores this country or lets it go. And I have great faith that you are going to restore it, but it ain't going to be easy because you're in the minority. You were spat on by your professor?
It was my professor's husband.
Oh, and that's sweet.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. What happened?
Well, my conservative organization and I at Truman State, we host speakers every year through the Claire Booth Luce Policy Institute, and we had a table set up to promote our conservative ideals and our speakers and everything. And he angrily approached us, and he ripped off all of our flyers, posters, and everything. And before he left, he turned around and spat on me, and then just walked away.
What did you say?
I was disgusted, because here's an individual who routinely writes such nasty hate mail about our conservative organization.
No, you're the one with the hateful rhetoric.
Yeah, exactly. And he belittles us, and he's not even employed by the university. Yet,
so did you file a complaint?
Well, we attempted to, and there's nothing that we could do because he's not employed, so we can't really do anything because the university isn't responsible for those who are not on their payroll.
Convenient.
How convenient.
You know, I have to tell you, you three troublemakers, right? You did videos that you've done the one with the redistribution of the grades, which was genius. And then the next one was, there was another one. What was the other one?
We asked students at Berkeley about taking the pledge to pay off their share of the national debt to maintain all these wonderful social programs that we've become accustomed to.
None of them.
No.
That's crazy. I won't do it. That's crazy. Why will I pay that? Exactly. This is the way to attack. They are instead engaging in no debate. Shout-downs, intimidation. That's what your professors are. They're bullies. That's what this is. All this is. Communist and Marxism, it can never win up here How many times does it have to try? We have to try it, and how many countries? How many millions of people have to die before the world says, "Wait, Marxism doesn't work"? And that's why they have to bully you. So you know you're on the right side when you want to have a debate and when you can make points like you guys did. How difficult was it to how difficult is it to not get angry, just win?
It's quite difficult not to get angry. Especially in the GPA video, when students can't come up with a valid or concrete reason as to why GPA is different than income, and to see them support one system and the philosophy of redistributing wealth and not do the same or be willing to share some of their GPA points, and then for not to see that same parallel that the philosophy they support, they only support it when it's not their
that's the way it always
being
is.
Affected. Yeah.
When it's, as long as it's somebody else, it's always fine. Hang on, let's play a little bit of it. Here it is.
You have a 4.0? Yeah, it's an excessive GPA. So we're going to basically emulate the federal tax structure. And we tax the rich to help those in lower income brackets. Basically the same thing. Like, do you really need a 4.0?
Yeah.
Because, like, you earn both, right?
It's not the same thing, because money's different.
Why do you need a 4.0?
Because I earned it.
But, I mean, people earn their money and use that same argument to, it's kind of like a selfish argument, no?
Yeah, because this is an indication of performance.
Isn't your income an indication of performance? You have to work hard for that money.
That's when you could feel it, right? You could feel them inside just going, "Oh crap."
They can't come up with any reasons. Every single person said it's different, and when asked why, it's just different, and nothing concrete, nothing valid, nothing.
How many of you are Republicans?
Embarrassed.
How many of you are conservatives? How many is anybody here feel like they're a libertarian? Kirby, you go girl. Good. Why are you a libertarian?
I entered college as a conservative, and then found there's just certain areas where I just didn't agree with the Republican Party line, and struck it on my own.
Who can tell me the difference between a Republican and a libertarian? Come on, guys. Aaron.
Republicans like to spend money. Just as
I don't think you raised your hand as a Republican, did you? Tell me, it was somebody who raised their hand as a Republican. Tell me the difference. Oliver.
Yeah, generally social issues is where they differ from the libertarians. Libertarians want to stay out of social issues.
But what is let's take the social issues here for a second. Would you say that our founders were libertarian, or were they Republicans?
I'd say that they were libertarian, but I think that the right to life is something that needs to be protected. So
Kirby,
I think you can make a libertarian argument for pro-life, to be pro-life, but I think libertarianism has a lot more consistency intellectually than Republican talking points of saying we're going to cut spending, but then when you actually get in power, there's no difference.
You know what? I think you're right on that, but that doesn't even matter. It requires you to do the work. It requires you. Anything that takes the power away from the individual. Look, we legalize drugs. Do you know how many people are going to be strung out on heroin? Why? Because the country is not prepared for that responsibility. You can do the hardcore libertarian when the country is prepared to do this. Oh, I'll help you. You need help? You want to get off heroin? No, man, I just need some money. Okay, well, that's great. I'm going to go into my office now. Okay? When the country is prepared to say, I will help you if you will help yourself. Otherwise, I've got to step over you. But the country isn't built like that now. You have to build the country into that. You have to get yourself and those around you to say, responsibility for your own actions. Mike.
I actually had a professor that suggested that if anyone in our class was going to do hard drugs, they do heroin.
And how much did you pay him for that? and his reason?
That it was good to be knocked out all day.
Oh.
And that it preserves your youth.
Well, that's... I believe we just met our first professor that is actually on heroin. Back in just a second. We're talking to college conservatives and asking them what life is like on college, and hopefully trying to give you a little bit of fire in the belly for standing up for what you believe. Claire?
Well, I guess the thing that we're told that only thing we can control in college is our grades, and that's why we're scared, is because that's the only thing we think that we have control of. You don't have control
Do you believe that to be true?
I mean, increasing tuition every year.
Yeah, why is tuition increasing?
I don't know, 6% this year, so.
Yeah, it's interesting that professors that colleges are increasing faster than health care in the last 10 years, and yet no one says a word about that. Yes?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound heartless, but right now the government's pushing a program where everyone should be going to college, where over 60% of high school graduates are going to a 4-year program that might not be best for them. And it's really, the demand is rising so quickly that everyone's getting squeezed completely.
Yeah, you don't have to go to college. You don't have to go to college.
Yeah, exactly, you, sir.
Yeah. I mean, I was a dummy for a long time. But you don't have to go to college. Self-made men. You know what George Washington's really only self-esteem problem came from? He didn't go to college. And he felt, here he was, this admired man. He felt he wasn't up to it because he wasn't, he hadn't been anointed by the smart ones. Please, challenge everything. And let me tell you something. The only thing you can control, is what you choose to do. You can't control the outcomes. You can't control the grades. You can't control everybody else. Nothing. But you can control I know because I've done it. I mean, you should see my library. It is the absolute library of a serial killer because I have everything in it. And when I couldn't afford to go to college, I decided to do it myself. And I went into the bookstore and the libraries, and I pulled the people that I thought would argue. If this guy were alive and this guy were alive, man, I'd like to listen to them. I got Mein Kampf and Alan Dershowitz. Okay? I got Nostradamus and Pope John Paul. Have at it. That's the way you learn. You can do it yourself. Have self-confidence. Forget about the grade. Learn. Who cares if you walk out with a 4.0 but no knowledge? Get the knowledge. SC and I have been talking about this for a while.
The good news is conservatism on college campuses is what counts as rebellion these days. And you've heard these stories of these kids who are going out and they're emboldened to become activists. That's the good news. And I don't have to tell you, we're prepared to help them. And in the fall, I don't want to say too much.
I don't know what you're saying.
We don't want to say too much, but over the summer, students should subscribe to the newsletter, keep in touch with us.
It's free.
Because come fall, you are going to have tools at your disposal that you have not had. And I've been there. I've been in college campuses. I went to a bunch of colleges. You're going to have the tools that you need. You will not be alone anymore.
You guys familiar with the 912 Project? Okay. I'm not doing a 912 project for colleges, but I am leaving Fox because if we lose your generation, we lose. And I have to concentrate on your generation. So I'm asking you, if you're in college now, you stay in touch with as many people as you can, and then you tell us what you need, because we're working on some things, so when you come back at the fall, we're just going to smoke them out. Uh-oh, that sounded like George W. Bush. Smoke them out. Smoke them out. Aaron.
We were talking about taking action. I'm a columnist for the Rutgers daily newspaper, the Daily Targum, and I write about usually pro-Israel and conservative issues. And I have been threatened to be sued. I have been petitioned by the outreach coordinator of the Middle Eastern Studies Department to be kicked out of my job, and I've been physically threatened by the same woman coming up to me out of a meeting, pounding her chest, and saying that she's Palestinian, and I'm going to have to get through her before I can get to the bottom.
You know the first death threat I ever had? First death threat I ever had, and I get a lot of them. I spend over $1 million a year in personal security. That comes out of my pocket for death threats. First one I had was a Palestinian that called me up and said, "You have got to shut up." This is right after September 11th. "Because we are a peace-loving people, and if you don't shut up, I will behead you myself!" And I was like, okay, I don't think you should pipe down. You're not helping the cause. Wear that with a badge of honor.
Rutgers, earlier in the year, originally had a student fee-sponsored program that was going to send a flotilla to Gaza. And luckily, the State Department said that that's illegal. You can't do that. And I was, again, physically threatened by students. You know, these people, the people who say that they're full of peace and they're the ones that want to, you know, bring peace to the world are the same people who are telling me that they want to bash my face in with a crowbar.
Listen, I know this. I know this. And it's people on both sides, not usually, but there are people on both sides, and you must never, ever become them, because you'll get angry. And you must never, ever become them. But get used to it, because it's only going to get worse, especially on Israel issues. It's only going to get worse. Stand fast and learn courage. Back in a second. Good for you. Who have had enough on campus, Eric?
So I actually had the honor to get involved with your 9/12 project over the summer. And I attend these wonderful people's meetings. They talk about contemporary politics. And when I went back to my university and shared my experiences with my friends, and they thought it was a horrible idea that I actually got involved with the Tea Party and talked with these people. And they think that everybody are racist, all the Tea Party people. But as a minority myself, they invited me to their Christmas parties. They are very welcome people. These are amazing people. And in university, professors tell you that you should get to know people before you judge them. But I think what happened right here is exactly the opposite. They didn't get to know these Tea Party people.
Which tells you what, Eric?
I don't
Draw
think...
a conclusion. What does that mean?
These people are hypocrites.
Hypocrites? Or they have an agenda? They have an agenda, or they're just hypocrites. And I would suggest to you that they have an agenda, because if you look at all of the other breadcrumbs, you see they are not open to the ideas of the Tea Party or the 9/12 Project. Kirby.
I think all of us have had the experience of expressing unpopular ideas in the classroom and coming up with disagreement. And that can be frustrating, but I think, you know, the leftist bias is somewhat expected by all of us in academia. But when it gets to the point where the bias is institutionalized in the administration and you're denied even the opportunity to express those ideas, that's a serious, serious problem. Regardless of what that bias is, you should never be denied your free speech on a college campus. It's supposed to be, you know, the marketplace of ideas.
Tenure.
And we've had 2 separate events on our campus shut down for very, you know, silly reasons, that flaws in paperwork that they made up and put us through, you know, going through hoops to try to reschedule and ultimately denied. So I think a major problem is if you can't even have that opportunity to express what you want to say.
SC goes to colleges. I don't go to colleges. I won't speak at colleges. NYU has asked me over and over and over and over and over again to speak. No. I'm not going to waste my time. Because that's what will happen. You will waste my time. You do it all the time.
I do. I do it through groups like the Claire Bouffouz Policy Institute and YAF and groups that work really hard to bring conservative speakers to colleges where this kind of thing happens all the time. All the time.
Do you know what purified by fire means? What?
Is it the organization that...
No. What the term purified by fire means. When you take gold and you put it into a fire, you burn out its imperfections. So now it's pure gold, right? Purified by fire. That's what's happening, you guys. They're not being purified by fire. They are so incredibly intellectually weak. In the end, who wins? You do. Because you're being purified by fire. Emily.
Well, this past spring, I had the audacity to bring a conservative woman to speak on feminism. And for that, one of my professors targeted me because I wouldn't bend to his political beliefs. When it came time for my final exams, I made a huge mistake. I showed up at the wrong time. And I'm a conservative. I take responsibility for my mistake. But my teacher made up reasons as to why I wasn't allowed to take my exam. He said that I didn't deserve to take my exam because I was a troublemaker and because I was a bad student, although I've been on the dean's list every semester.
Good. You guys change your perspective here. Good. Wear it as a badge of honor. Good. I'm a troublemaker. Good. Rise up and do it peacefully. Rise up. Good. Wear it as a badge of honor. Back in a second. Natalie, you were at University of Iowa.
Yep.
And the professor said...
She responded to our campus-wide email that we got approved about Conservative Coming Out Week with literally F you Republicans. Then her credentials at the bottom.
You filed a complaint?
Yes.
What happened?
Nothing.
No.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, she still makes her $94,800 salary.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Bother you?
Yeah, of course. I mean, when a professor uses that as her civil discourse when she's supposed to teach students.
It shows what a mental midget she is.
Yeah.
Don't let it bother you. It's a mental midget.
Yeah.
Mental midget. Really.
It really is.
Seriously. It's like, whoa. I think I heard that argument in the 8th grade. Gina, you go to Columbia.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
And I just feel like as challenging and disheartening as it sometimes may be to be a conservative and voice conservative views on a liberal campus, it's absolutely critical for young Republicans, young conservatives to be doing this, not only to further develop their arguments and confirm what they already believe, but to make our voice heard on these very liberal campuses.
Let me tell you guys something. How many read the Federalist Papers? Good for you. I made a challenge last year. I said somebody needs to rewrite them. A college student did. A law student. He rewrote them. I'm publishing them in about 2 months. And it is the thing that every single one of you should read and memorize and be able to, don't argue back and forth about Republican and Democrat. Talk about the values and the principles of freedom and the founding of this country. And again, wear your strife as a badge of honor. It's only making you more strong. You guys are going to boot camp. They're going to coffee shops. Who wins in the... I tell you, life is tough, and then you die. But life is worth every second that you live. You guys are living. You win in the end. Mental midget. You win in the end. Back in just a second. These guys are amazing. This is our future. And they're getting stronger and stronger and stronger through the abuse because it pushes them to the wall. Revel in that. Thomas Jefferson will be a rebel again, not the mainstream. Good. That's where he's always belonged. From New York, good night, America.
Thing and then redistribute it to someone who's struggling in class, not able to graduate.
It just isn't fair. I work for what I have.
I mean, I understand the money version of it, but the educational version,
I just feel like it's the
different.
same thing. People who, how's it different? That's GPA. This is an imitation of performance.
They're here in the studio audience. I love you guys. Fantastic job by the students who came up with this question, and they have more of them. But when it comes to giving up something that the students earned, the students aren't so willing to give them up. Sounds like they're greedy students, doesn't it? They probably have privileges of, the lower performing students didn't have, and now they're just greedy. Maybe a mom or a dad bought them a fancy laptop, so why won't they share? University of Redlands in California, students supporting the state's Prop 8 law, which doesn't recognize same-sex marriage, posted a sticker on her dorm room door. There it is, yes on 8. She was told to take it down because it was hate speech. Bucknell University, a group of students handed out fake money that they called Obama stimulus dollars to prove that our dollar is as worthless as monopoly money, and they're right. He had to be escorted out of the room, so he took a 20-minute break before returning to finish his speech. In total, he was uninterrupted 10 times. It ended in the arrest of 11 students. And this isn't an isolated incident. Views that are considered to be unpopular or conservative have come under attack by liberals on campuses all across the country. Iowa State University, the Conservative Coming Out Week event, is sponsored by the college Republicans. The group got an email response from one of the university professors saying, "F you, Republicans." She went on later to apologize for her language, but defended it by saying the group's announcement was extremely disturbing and offensive. Really? Truman State University in Missouri. A popular leftist who is married to one of the school's professors destroyed a display advertising a Republican-sponsored event. He tore down the group's signs, ripped them up, and spat on the students representing the group. University of California, Merced. 3 students wanted to explain our country's tax system, so they asked their peers to offer up some of their own hard-earned GPA points to some of the students who weren't scoring as high. Take a look at what happened.
Give it 4.0, we'll take off the excessive GPA, make it like a 58 or something.
Right, not yet, but soon. A school administrator put an end to it by saying the kids never got the school's permission because they hadn't filled out the proper paperwork. Indoctrination isn't new, but how far does it go back? I want you to go to glennbeck.com because I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. You have to see. Here's Horizons of the Future for a Socialist America. Socialism, what's in it for you? I love this one, the Youth Review. This is from the Communists in 1953 here in America, and it's all the same stuff. All of the same stuff. Hey, students, you've got to rise up because the man's giving you the shaft. It's the same exact stuff. Look, view the historical documents sent to me that outline the plan to target our children, and then compare them. Compare them. You'll never guess which generation got the brunt of this propaganda. They're the ones that are currently jamming it down the throats in our university for our university students. The only way to undo the mess that they have created is E2, education. Educate yourself. Go now to glennbeck.com. Now, and here are these dopes who are on the school board and like, hey, careful, let's not use that language, they're kids here. Yeah, and they're reading the school books every day. When something like this happens in Tucson, we think it's rare. We think it's rare in high school. But it is happening in colleges all across the country. Yesterday, we talked about feeling like a voice in the wilderness. But there is anything that is more fun than being a conservative on a college campus. Can you imagine being more alone? Colleges and universities often tout about having an atmosphere of openness and acceptance. Yeah, right. There's always an asterisk that goes along with that. President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad accepted with open arms at universities. But look what happened when the Israeli ambassador to the United States visited the University of California, Irvine, just last year.
And then later I met the foreign minister of Israel. Those of you know him. Now that you've made your point, stand up and leave.
America. Indoctrination is happening in our schools throughout the country, and that's why we need to be engaged in what's happening in our schools and our communities. We have a choice. We are going to lose our country or we are going to save our country. But standing still and doing nothing will guarantee its loss. Earlier this week, I showed you what's being taught in Tucson as part of the controversial Mexican-American Studies program. I like to call it treason. During Tuesday's school board meeting, a mom stood up to read excerpts from the textbook. Watch what happens.
At page 72 of this book, it says radical page 73, bull and kiss the man's.
I'm going to ask, if I'm sorry, but Dr. Slegman, I'm going to ask that the language be not mentioned during public meetings.
Okay.
We may have young people in this room, it's inappropriate.
You're right.
Thank you, Doctor.
They're talking in class, teaching it in your class.
Wait, please.
Yeah. That's the point. She was reading from a textbook that the school uses to teach kids as young as 3rd grade.